state of readiness on January 3rd was highly variable. In fact, the technical answer is that it's very hard to be precise because there are no metrics to measure against to say X is ready and Y is not ready. But clearly there were pockets of unreadiness outside of Europe. There were many people in Europe who had done as much preparation as they possibly could, but there was some uncertainty about some of the regulations, some of the legal implementation, and there were some last-minute rule clarifications that came in. So the industry could not be 100% ready, but what the actual percentage is an unknown right now. It's very hard to say where we are in the implementation process of MiFID II because of the lack of data about how many people are impacted and what they actually have to do to be fully compliant. It's a very private, very opaque subject matter right now. The regulators and the supervisors have clearly indicated that if you are in the preparation state and you are getting ready to be fully compliant, they will be tolerant of that. There's a period of regulatory forbearance likely. If they find that you've actually done no preparation at all, I think that's a much more uncomfortable situation between you and your regulator. But I think the vast majority of the market, if not 100%, are taking steps to get ready to be compliant for the market. There are extra people being put on certain processes. There are manual processes that have been adopted as stopgap measures to overcome late builds of technology, for example. Over time, those things will bed down. The technology will be upgraded. The extra people, the extra bodies will be reassigned to other work that they were probably doing before, and the market will settle down. In the 3 or 4 weeks prior to implementation date, it became clear that some parts of the market didn't have an LEI and therefore weren't able to be compliant. Clients should apply for those LEIs now if they haven't already got them. There's no technical reason why they can't. It only takes 2 or 3 days to get an LEI. There's no reason to wait for the end of the 6-month period. It's still in the early stages of development. So in the second half of 2017, buy-side firms began to make their decisions about which research policy to follow, the P&L model or the RPA model, the difference being whether fund managers pay for the research themselves or whether they still charge it to their clients. For many buy-side firms, this is a pretty complex area, especially if they have a diverse client base. Once they made that policy decision, they have to implement it, which involves all their counterparties, all their brokers need to be compliant with whatever policy they've chosen. And that's going to take quite a long time to implement and test and bed down and find out all the operational requirements. The potential big changes that are triggered by research unbundling in 2018 and beyond are a freedom for the buy side to be more open about who they trade with. The obligation to trade with a sell-side firm that provided them with research is no longer there. In fact, they're not allowed to do that. So therefore they can use, if they want to, the smaller, low-touch, high-tech, best execution brokers that just do pricing and execution. They don't have any research capability, so they're not conflicted. So there's probably a wider choice of executing counterparty in the market for the buy, so it gives them a new capability. I would say the extraterritorial impact of MiFID outside Europe is not that well understood. It's quite variable, but I would point to Asia Pacific as a particular area. There are quite a number of firms there that are purely Asian. They don't have a European presence. They have no natural way of finding out about regulation in the European markets. And some of them haven't fully understood that if you have a European client, you are impacted by MiFID, irrespective of what role you play, where you are in the world, inside the scope of MiFID II, because of its extraterritorial nature, and you have to prepare and get ready to comply with the regulation. There isn't an indication how Brexit will affect MiFID at this point in time, because what we do know is the Brexit date, March 2019. What we don't know is whether there will be a formal transition period after that and what form that transition period will take. So MiFID II has been implemented in full by the UK, and what I think people need to remember is that an awful lot of the policy initiatives that led to MiFID II are inspired by the UK market. UK policymakers were instrumental in framing what is in MiFID and doing a lot of the technical work about how it will actually work. So at the moment there's no Brexit impact and none is foreseen, and there was no rowing back or likely repeal of any of the MiFID terms post-Brexit is foreseen. So it will stay in place in perpetuity as far as most people, nearly everybody in fact, is concerned. Fixed income is an interesting area of MiFID II because it's bringing more transparency into the market. Very deliberately, that's definitely a policy objective. Where markets have higher levels of transparency, they generally increase the number of trades, but the size of the trades decreases. So the overall economic value is much the same, but the nature of the market changes, so you have a lot more transaction flow. Fixed income architecture and operational capabilities are often built around fairly low volumes, so they have a higher focus on risk management rather than high volume straight through processing capabilities. So that dynamic may change. The volume of fixed income transactions may sharply increase. They may be more electronic, but if the users in the market have manual processing associated with fixed income transactions, they may struggle to cope with those volume increases.